My name is Mike Davis. I'm a student physical therapy assistant with South University. Today I'm going to be demonstrating some range of motion testing and some manual muscle testing. This is my patient, my daughter Kinsley. Kinsley, is it all right if I do some range of motion and manual muscle test on you today?
Yes, sir.
All right, I've got verbal consent, so we're gonna get started on this. First thing we're gonna do is shoulder flexion. Anytime that you want to do range of motion tests on any joint, you want to check the infield. And the reason why you want to check the infield is because you want to make sure there's no capsular pathologies or anything like that right there. So for the shoulder, I'm going to have her abduct her arm, elbow at 90 degrees, and I'm just going to rotate in. That's internal rotation. And I'm going to rotate her back out. This is external rotation. I don't feel any capsular limitations or anything like that. You'll have greater range of motion on external rotation. You do internal rotation, and that's how the joints are that's how this joint is designed. But normal range of normal infields for a shoulder are firm. You should never have hard or soft infields on any of the motions dealing with the shoulder. All of them should be firm. Today the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure her for shoulder flexion. And there's some important landmarks that we need to understand. She has an arm to her side. This is her mid-axillary. This is her lateral epicondyle. If I can palpate her greater tubercle. And these are the landmarks that we're gonna be discussing. Of course, the stationary arm goes on the mid-axillary, the axis goes on the great tubercle, and the movement arm will be aligned with the lateral epicondyle. So we've already checked for infields. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to passively move her through the range of motion of shoulder flexion. So I'll take it, and I will simply move it all the way up. I don't see any issues. I'll move it all the way back down. I'll take my goniometer. This is a goniometer measurement. We'll be using goniometer to make this measurement. So then I'll ask her to actively move her arm into shoulder flexion. I rediscover my landmarks: stationary, mid-axillary, axis on the great tubercle, and the movement arm is going to be on the lateral epicondyle. So we'll take this like so. Get everything aligned, and this is how you take a measurement. Normal range of motion for shoulder flexion is 0 to 180, and this includes how to measure for range of motion shoulder flexion. All right, we're gonna move into measuring shoulder range of motion of shoulder internal rotation. We've already checked her infield on her shoulder. And her infield is all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to have her, she's like this, of course. We're going to have her abduct her shoulder into 90. We're going to have her forearm also into 90. I have a towel up under. A normal bed would not be like this. A normal examining table would be hard. She's sunk down just a little bit. But her forearm should be parallel with her her axillary line. Anyway, the landmarks that we're going to be dealing with at this point in time is we'll start out with the axis because it's just easier. It's going to be the electron process. The moving arm will be the styloid process of the ulna, and the stationary arm will simply just be perpendicular to the floor. And I'm going to need you to move up just a little bit. There we are. Like so. So what we'll do is we'll first passively move her. I'm going to stabilize the proximal portion of the humerus. Fold your hand up. I will passively move her through the range of motion. When I feel anterior pressure on the head of the humerus, I know that that's the end of her infield. So what I'll do is come over, get her in position, and then I simply place my goniometer, like I said, axis on the olecron process. Stationary arm is going to be perpendicular to the floor, and the moving arm is going to be on the styloid process of her oilment. And that is how you measure the internal rotation of a shoulder. Next, we're going to be doing elbow flexion and extension. But once again, I want to check her infields, make sure she's not having any capsulary pathologies going on. So to check flexion infield, basically what you'll do is just you'll flex, and bicep on forearm, it should be a soft infield. Somebody that's really muscular, you probably have a little more firm feeling, but it's still a soft infield. And then extend out, and it's going to be a hard infield. She has just a little bit of hyperextension, not a lot, but that's a electron process on the electron capsule, so it's going to be a hard infield. Same thing with pronation, supination. It's going to be a firm infield. Roll back, pronation, same thing, firm infield, and she's normal. That's how you check for infield, so we can check for range of motion of elbow flexion extension. All right, we've already checked out her infields of her elbow. No issues to be noted. So what we're going to do is now we're going to measure her for shoulder extension. Things we have to be mindful of is our landmarks. We'll start with our axis, which is going to be the lateral condyle of the humerus. That's our axis. Our stationary arm is going to be the tip of the acromion process, and the moving arm is going to be on the radial styloid process. You should have, normally infield is 0. You may get a little bit of hyperextension in some elbows, but what we're going to do is I'm going to passively move her into shoulder extension. All right, so I've noted her full range of motion. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have her actively move herself into extension. All right, I'm going to line my goniometer. Hold her proximal humerus stationary, flex her arm. Oh, there you go. And she is right on 0. So that concludes how to measure range of motion for shoulder extension. Now we're going to measure Kinsley's elbow flexion. What I've done is I put a towel up under her humerus, several different reasons. I get a full range of motion, and I'm able to see her lateral epicondyle. So the first thing I'll do, like all the other ones, I'm going to move her through passive range of motion. I'll take her, I'll stabilize the proximal humerus, and I'll move her through passive range of motion. All right. At this point in time, I'm going to go over our landmarks. Like I said before, the axis is going to be on the lateral epicondyle. The stationary arm is going to be on the tip of the acromion process, and the moving arm is going to be on the radial styloid process. So what I'll do is I have her go ahead and move into elbow flexion. Take my goniometer. Got my towel a little bit too long. Have the goniometer. Oh, go back. Feel her not the best circumstances. I will feel her lateral epicondyle of my axis on it. Stationary arm is going to be aligned with her chromic process, and then the movement arm is going to be aligned with her radial styloid process. Move her into flexion, and she is at approximately 150, which is normal range of motion for elbow flexion, and that concludes how to measure for elbow flexion. We will now measure Kinsley for carpal metacarpal abduction or thumb abduction. You'll have her in neutral position, 0 degrees of pronation, 0 degrees of supination. Our landmarks are going to be the axis. It's going to be the lateral midline. The lateral aspect of the radial styloid process. The stationary arm is going to be lateral midline of the second metacarpal, and the movement arm is going to be lateral midline of the first, which is her thumb metacarpal. Normal abduction for thumb abduction is 70 degrees. This right here, it's imperative that you know that this person can start from 0 degrees of abduction. So if all three of these align, radial styloid process, the first metacarpal can stack on top of the second metacarpal. That means that she is in fact able to start from 0. What she'll do is I will passively move her through the range of motion. Abduction is away from the thumb, so away from the hand. I'll take my goniometer, I'll place it on my axis. I'll place it, which is the lateral aspect of the radial styloid process. The stationary arm is going to be over the midline of the first metacarpal and, the second metacarpal, and the movement arm will be aligned with the first metacarpal. We'll take our measurement, and that is how you complete, she was right at 65, so this is how you complete a range of motion test for carpal metacarpal abduction or thumb abduction. We'll now go through some manual muscle tests. The first test we want to do is shoulder external rotation. Grade 5 out of 5. Kinsley's patient positioned prone. Her humerus is stabilized on a towel, which give her full range of motion. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check her, passively check her range of motion. So forearm is going to be in neutral, thumb up, and I'm just going to passively run her through range of motion. Have a firm infield. Let her back down. At this point in time, I know that she has no capsular issues, and we can continue with the test. So what I'll do is I'm going to have her actively rotate her arm in the external rotation. Do it now. Thumb up. There you go. I'm going to reach just distal of the wrist, and I'm going to press down with maximum resistance. If she can resist maximum resistance, it's going to be a grade 5 out of 5. So push down directly towards the floor, don't bend. And she has that is a muscle grade 5 out of 5. You may relax. And that's how to check for manual muscle test 5 out of 5. All right, I'm just going to do a recap of the last one. My patient and I were thinking about 2 different things. Anyway, I'm going to be tested for manual muscle test grade 5 for shoulder external rotation. Humerus, shoulders abducted to 90. Humerus is on a towel. Her forearms in neutral position. I'm going to first ask her to. I'm going to come here on the ipsilateral side, and I'm going to palpate for the teres minor and the infraspinatus. I'll have her just. I'm going to actively move her through passive range of motion. She has a firm infield, what she has. I'm gonna palpate again. There we go. And I'm gonna ask her to move her forearm up in the external rotation. I feel her infraspinatus and her teres minor both activated. For grade 5, I'm gonna reach just distant to her forearm, to her wrist, and I'm gonna push downward towards the floor. Maximal resistance. She's able to hold against maximal resistance. I feel the contraction of the infraspinatus and teres minor. So this concludes a manual muscle test of the shoulder external rotation. All right, we're now going to assess this patient for trunk flexion. It's going to be grades 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, and 3 out of 5. First thing, as always, I'm going to passively move her through full range of motion of trunk flexion. So, inside. Make sure her, I feel all contractions. All right, she's able to move through full range of motion of her trunk flexors. So, Kinsley, what I want you to do now is I want you to put your hands behind your head. I'm going to stabilize her lower extremities, so I don't get any assistance from her lower extremities. And I'd like for you to do a actively move yourself into trunk flexion. And back down. Since she was able to complete that, that is a grade 5 out of 5. Now I would like for you to cross your hands across your chest. Once again, I'm going to stabilize. I'm going to have you move into trunk flexion. Go. And back down. Since she was able to complete that task, that would be a grade 4 out of 5. And now I would like for you to move your hands to the side. I would like for you, I'm going to stabilize again. I'm going to have you move into trunk flexion. Go ahead. And back down. Since she was able to complete that task, that would be a grade 3 out of 5. And that concludes how to manual muscle test for trunk flexion. All right, we'll be performing a manual muscle test of capital extension 5 out of 5. Capital extension is just the head. Just the head. Your neck flexors and extensions will not be activated in this. So you have to pay attention to what's going on in the cervical area. So what I'm going to do is, my patient is prone, her hands are to the side, her head is laying off the side of the bed. I'm going to reach down with my right hand, or whichever hand that you're dealing with, and I'm going to hold her occipital. I'm going to passively move her through the range of motion of capital extension. All right. Nothing there to alarm me, so I can move on with the test. My instructions, Kinsley, is going to be, when I tell you to look at the wall, hold it, don't let me move your head down. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. All right. So I'll reach up, I grab her occipital. My other hand is going to be there prepared in case she's able to break and I have to catch her forehead. Kinsley, at this time I want you to look up at the wall, hold it, don't let it push you down. She holds against max resistance. You may relax. She holds against max resistance, so that's going to be 5 out of 5. Like I said, you cannot let her activate her neck extensors. It's just occipital. So if you feel her start activating her neck extensors, she's gone too far, and just stabilize the head a little better. But that's how you check for capital extension 5 out of 5. This is going to be a manual muscle test for wrist extension, grade 2. What I'll do is I'll take my patient Kinsley, I'll move her to, I'll passively move her, check her range of motion. She is very flexible, so I know that she can get into full range of motion. This is a gravity eliminated. She's seated on top of the countertop. Her forearm is resting on the countertop. Her hands in neutral position, 0 degrees pronation, 0 degrees supination. And what I'll do is have her actively move her arm into wrist extension, actively move her wrist into extension. Go ahead, Kinsley. All right, back. Since she was able to move her wrist into full extension, full range of motion without any assistance, but on gravity minimized surface, that would be a grade 2. Let's say she wasn't able to move, Kinsley move but don't go into full range of motion. Let's just say she got partial range of motion, that'd be a 2 minus. Let's on a gravity minimized surface. Once again, I'm going to ask her to move into full wrist extension, moving to full wrist extension on a gravity minimized surface and able to withstand a little bit of pressure. That would be a 2 plus. So that is how you check for manual muscle test of wrist extension. When you're checking for manual muscle testing of the wrist extensors, there's several muscles that you're going to be focusing on. Extensor carpi brevis and longus, and extensor carpi radialis, longus and brevis, and extensor carpi ulnaris are the muscles that you're going to be checking when you check for wrist extension. Like I said, gravity minimized surface, move into wrist extension. She had went in wrist extension on by herself on the gravity resistance. That's a grade 2. Thank you very much.